This is 99.3 FM, WBTV-LP Burlington, streaming online at 993wbtv.org. And this program is made possible in part by Burlington Telecom's Lifeline program, promoting a digitally inclusive community by helping Burlington residents afford the internet tools they need to reach their full potential. Learn more at burlingtontelecom.com. And please enjoy another episode of Steam Lab.
Each week, we'll explore topics related to science, technology, engineering, art, and the mathematics. Our mission is to entertain, engage, and educate the Burlington community. Wait, no, the world! Hello, Kyle.
Hello, Philip.
Welcome to Steam Lab, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. And I'm very loud in my own headphones.
Ooh.
And I'm your host, Engineer Phil. And across the way from me is Dr. Kyle.
Hello. I feel like it's been so long since I've been in the studio. Oh, my gosh.
I mean, kind of.
I know. I'm sorry. April and May are both crazy times.
It's been so long since you've prepared anything for the show.
I had some stuff going on.
Sick burn.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're right.
Although we're going to do a sick episode on lobotomies coming up. I'm going to get that one in the works.
Yeah, I keep hearing about it.
Yeah. One day soon. Maybe in June.
I'm going crazy
when
over
I
this,
have
Kyle.
no more job.
I'm racking my brain.
And nothing but time. Until August.
Yeah, and then...
yeah, then forget
it.
And we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Well, hello. How's it going, Philip?
Good. Yeah. Hey, if you were looking to watch us right now, we're on YouTube Live, and I am posting a link on our Facebook page right now.
Oh, perfect.
So that people can go there
and listen and watch live.
Absolutely.
For the first hour.
Yep. Facebook.com/SteamLabVT and Twitter. We don't really do anything with Twitter, but it's there at SteamLabVT. So you can interact with us on those platforms, send us a message, ask questions, all that good stuff. And I think that's about it. There's stuff going on around here.
Is there?
I will tell you, I'm a little bummed out. We were supposed to participate in the Waking Windows event. Thank you. 10 points to you. But it didn't happen, logistics.
The event happened, but we weren't. The whole radio station wasn't there.
We were supposed to be there. It's a little bit of a bummer because it's DJ Lou's 25th anniversary, and they were kind of psyched to do it. And, well, whatever. We can celebrate DJ Lou in other ways.
That we can.
DJ Lou is the bomb.
They're pretty cool.
Check out their show. There's plenty of other activities going on. So in May, and this is already over, iMovie on computers, that's done. Adobe Premiere, that's coming up on the 8th, 3 days.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Audio editing with Audacity on the 9th. Osmo, which is how to use a gimbal stabilized camera. Folks, if you have interest in getting involved in media,
this is the place to do it.
Well, totally. And it doesn't really cost you anything. There are suggested donations, but
it's whatever you need.
If you don't have the money, you can still do it. Edit Suite certification on the 11th. Video production with Panasonic on the 13th. iPad and iPhone video production on the 14th. Video production with Canon on the 20th. Documentary interview production on the 23rd. It's all
very production
for
heavy.
You to come check out here at the Media Factory. A lot of workshops, a lot of good stuff. Come in, come check it out. Hope people enjoyed the show last week.
Yeah,
I had another co-host.
I heard it was good.
Yep.
That my miniature in my absence
Yes.
did very well.
Yes. Amelia did a great job, and it was quite fun. We
Yeah.
did good night stories for rebel girls,
Nice.
so it was pretty good. Amelia was it was an interesting challenge. Oh, good job. Nora got the roast in the oven.
Oh, perfect.
Excellent work.
I was busy last week making a fool out of myself in a Doctor Strange costume for my work. So
You did not make a fool out of yourself. I was jealous. But this week, our show is on Earth Day.
yes,
And I wanted to do this show a while ago,
maybe on Earth Day.
which was the 22nd, April 22nd.
Better late than never.
Exactly. And so I kind of I've done a lot of research on this one because I knew Kyle wouldn't.
Harsh.
Throwing you right under the bus.
All
buddy.
right. I had my whole EMT
I know.
stage
Hey,
1
you know
testing
what?
yesterday.
You're
so
saving lives,
it was,
and that's great.
It's a big day, big
Good
week.
for you.
All right.
So Earth Day was established in 1970,
Mm-hmm.
and Earth Day has become a worldwide holiday celebrated by over 1 billion people by 2010. And it's galvanized by this mounting evidence of environmental damage due to pollution, and it started. The inception of this movement was inspired by student organizations protesting the Vietnam War.
Interesting.
And Earth Day itself was conceived by a Wisconsin senator.
Not a Minnesotan.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
I'm waiting for the established
Can I
link,
just say that
which
Minnesota,
I'm sure there will be one.
People-
But go on.
there is a very friendly rivalry between people from Minnesota and people from Wisconsin. Minnesota actually gives Wisconsin a big hug,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So it's that thing like when the Packers play the Vikings, Vikings fans are like, we're going to get you. And Packers fans are like, we're going to get you. And hey, I hope you win the Super Bowl. Hey, you too, man. I hope you get one. But then when we play the Bears, we're like, oh, I hate those guys. Because Chicago is just,
Wow.
Anyways, it's a
Go
whole other thing. But this gentleman's name is Gaylord Nelson, and he's a World War II veteran. He wasn't just some hippie. He was an educated, good man, a senator from Wisconsin, and he wanted a new way to educate people about protecting the earth. That was the inception of it. So, so some history, okay?
Yeah.
Each year, Earth Day is on April 22nd. And some people are like, well, why April 22nd? And I'll explain. So, and Earth Day, it kind of, it's the birth of this modern environmental movement, right? Mm-hmm. Now you got to go back in time. Go back
I'm in my Wayback Machine.
before you were even alive.
Yeah.
Were your parents even alive?
It depends on what year you're talking about.
1970.
Yeah, they were alive. They were young.
How old?
My
3,
dad
4?
was born in 60, I think, and my mom was born in like 65.
Okay, so really young. Okay, fine. So this is the height of counterculture in the United States. 1960 is, that's the year that Jimi Hendrix died. The last Beatles album, Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water. War was raging in Vietnam still,
Yeah.
and students nationwide
Protesting.
overwhelmingly opposed this.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly, for a variety of reasons. Some people just didn't want to go to war. Other people were like, what are we doing there? And at the time, Americans were still using leaded gas through massive V8 sedan engines. I mean, and just sucking down fuel and, industry.
Yeah, being gross.
I mean, industry was belching out smoke and sludge into the water, and it was the smell of prosperity. Leaded gas.
Tasty.
Yeah. Environment was a word that appeared more often in spelling bees than on the evening news. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No one was really thinking about it.
Nobody was thinking about this.
Age of industry.
And mainstream America remained oblivious to environmental concerns. But the stage had been set for change. There was a book, publication of this book, Rachel Carson's, and it was a bestseller, Silent Spring. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. We learned about it in every bio class ever.
Of course.
It comes up.
So, this is people know this book. You don't even have to read it. Came out in 1962. The book represented what we could call a watershed moment, right? Selling more than 500,000 copies in 24 countries and beginning to raise public awareness and concern for living organisms. Start becoming aware. Another thing happened in late 68, December of 1968.
I don't know.
The Apollo program.
Oh, I should.
Everything's connected, my
I
friend.
should know that. We always talk about space, and two things that Steam Lab talks
Oh
about
my
in
God,
links
come on.
are
Minnesota.
space and NASA and Minnesota
Okay, thank
into
you.
every single
Yeah, okay, all right.
conversation. And when we're not doing that, we're railing you about climate change, which I guess is
We're doing it
the
all.
theme of this show.
We're doing it all. We're doing it all. It's all connected. It's all connected.
No, I love it.
So
I'm part of the problem.
Oh, you are. That's okay. So in December of 1968, Apollo went around the moon. And in doing so, we discovered that we could go to the moon, but we also discovered our own planet,
Yeah.
the Earth, our island home. These astronauts came around the dark side of the moon, and they had so much film to shoot the moon and they were trying to find landing sites. What's an ideal landing site? They're nice and close. So they're trying to take pictures, and they looked up Earthrise, which became one of the most famous and most publicized pictures ever,
Yeah.
the Earthrise. And so all these things are kind of coming together, to raise awareness and concern and the environment and all these links between pollution and public health, right? All these things are happening. And Earth Day in 1970 gave voice to this emerging consciousness.
Yeah.
And it channeled the energy of the anti-war protest movement and put environmental concerns on the front page.
Yeah.
Got people thinking, talking. And so the idea, as I said, came from the founder, Gaylord Nelson. So at the same time period, this senator from Wisconsin, he witnessed a massive oil spill in 1969 in Santa Barbara, California. And it shook him.
Yeah.
He's like, what are we doing? And he realized if he could, at the same time, because he was this Democratic senator from Wisconsin, and he saw these students, right? And they were working together. And there was this energy. And if he could infuse the energy with this emerging public consciousness about air and water pollution, it would force environmental protection onto the national political agenda.
Yeah.
And so he announced the idea for a national teach-in on the environment. This is why Earth Day falls on April 22nd.
Why?
Spring break.
Oh, it's school breaks. So everyone's around.
See, I got there.
Okay. You got there.
He got there. This is the beauty of how Earth Day came together, because this is at a time period when Democrats and Republicans were actually working together.
It's amazing that happened at one point, given today's political climate.
So he persuaded a conservative-minded Republican congressman named Pete McCloskey to serve as his co-chair. And he also recruited Dennis Hayes from Harvard as a national coordinator. And they built a staff of 85 people to promote events across the land, falling between spring break and final exams. And that's why April 22nd was chosen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumors like April 22nd is Vladimir Lenin's birthday.
Really?
So they're like, oh, it's a communist thing.
Oh, yes. The environment must be communist, I guess, apparently, because it takes sides.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's why that was chosen.
Yeah.
So on April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans took to the streets, parks, auditoriums to demonstrate for a healthy, sustainable environment in these huge, massive coast-to-coast rallies. Thousands of colleges and universities and groups that have been fighting against oil spills, polluting factories and power plants, raw sewage, toxic dumps, pesticides, freeways, the loss of wilderness, the extinction of wildlife. Suddenly, they all came together and they realized, have common values.
Yeah.
And it achieved this rare political alignment, enlisting support from Republicans and Democrats, rich and poor, city slickers, farmers, hand in hand, tycoons, labor leaders. And it all, like, it was huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting, too, how, like, you know, certain topics that affect everybody can have that ability to sort of, like, reach across the aisle and connect hands, you know. And then when it comes to, and now, I mean, it's hard to say, even today, climate change is a topic that everyone is concerned about because they're not.
Right.
Which is why I think that we, you know, it's interesting, like, seeing, like, in 1970s versus today, how, like, you had millions of people going out and getting, which, you know, to an extent happens on Earth Day now, but I feel like somewhere along the way from 40 years ago or 50 years ago to today, we've, like, lost some of that essence.
I disagree.
Yeah?
I disagree, because if you go back to 1970 and think about what was going on in Lake Champlain, those oil dolphins,
Valid. They were pumping oil.
they were actually pumping oil. The Moran plant
Yeah.
was actually a coal-burning electric plant. There's been a lot of improvement. Things kind of died off. And then as 1990 approached, they decided that Earth Day should go global. And they mobilized. So Dennis Hayes, this guy from Harvard, they got 141 countries to lift environmental issues onto the world stage. And I mean, it's kind of grown and grown and grown. Now, I think we should take a break.
Ooh, yeah, it's been 15 minutes.
Yeah. And I have an interesting story about, this is going to kind of, it's fascinating. It's super fascinating. And I don't really know how else to describe this.
Yeah.
Other than it involves Richard Nixon.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's
Okay,
all I'm going to say.
I'm intrigued.
That's all I'm going to say. So I got some music. We'll talk about it when we come back. And now it's time for Science in the News with Dr. Kyle.
This week in science history. In 1930, the first U.S. motion picture of the 1.5-minute totality of an eclipse of the sun was taken from an airplane flying about 18,000 feet over Honey Lake, California. In 1998, Brazil agreed to set aside about 62 million acres of the Amazon rainforest for conservation. In 1960, the oldest U.S. bat was identified as 24 years old, having been banded on 22 June 1937 in Mashpee, Massachusetts. In 1958, the discovery of the powerful Van Allen radiation belt that surrounds Earth was published in the Washington Evening Star. In 1775, Benjamin Franklin completed the first scientific study of the Gulf Stream. In 1968, Dr. Denton Cooley of the Texas Heart Institute performed the first successful heart transplant in the United States on Everett Thomas, whose heart was damaged from rheumatic heart disease.
I wonder if he's related to Sheila.
In 2003, the first cloned equine, a mule foal, was born at the University of Idaho, United States, named Idaho Gem. In 1933, the discovery of radio waves from the center of the Milky Way galaxy was described by Karl Jansky in a paper he read at the International Radio Union in Washington. And finally, in 1989, the space probe Magellan was carried in the cargo bay by the STS-30 Space Shuttle Atlantis mission launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And this has been This Week in Science History.
Wow. Jeez. You know, you talk about me like with the vein popping out of the side of my head.
I'm getting there. I feel like I've been doing this for months, and like I'm still finding it. But you know, it's fine. Some weeks I get the Tom Brokaw voice better than others.
Welcome back to STEAM Lab, Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics. I'm your host, Engineer Phil, and across the way from me is Dr. Kyle.
Hello.
And this week we're talking about Earth Day, our island home, and I have a story which involves our 37th president,
Everyone's favorite scandal-ridden president,
Nixon. And here's the thing.
I'm not a crook.
I'm not a crook. But so here's the thing. I don't know how to say this other than Richard Nixon is kind of an environmental hero.
Really?
Dude, I'm going to tell you this, and it kind of blows my mind.
Okay.
So I have some dates here. August 8th, 1974. Does that date mean anything to you?
Not yet.
It's not a date that really resonates. Not like July 4th, 1776, or...
Is it Arbor Day?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
December 7th, 1941, which is
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. 9/11.
Yes.
All those dates mean something. But this is about 44, 45 years ago. August 8th was an important day for people maybe old enough to remember, and I'm not one of those people.
Nor
It
am
was
I.
it was a Thursday evening that Richard Nixon announced that he was stepping down as president of the United States. He's the first president in U.S. history to resign from office, and so far the only one.
So far.
I don't think anybody else is going to. And honestly, you know, from what I've read and from what I understand from other people, it was kind of a day that younger people celebrated.
Yeah.
They were like, yes, you know, I'm not a crook. Richard Nixon.
Yeah, they've taken down the establishment kind of victory.
Most folks from the younger generation pretty much hated
Yeah.
Nixon. He failed to end the Vietnam War. You know, he had this so-called secret plan. Do you ever hear about this? So when he was elected into office
Oh, yeah, the Nixon plan.
in
Yeah,
1968, he promised he had this secret plan, and in fact, he escalated it.
He
He bombed Cambodia.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Vietnam.
And there's a lot of things that like came out that like Nixon actually had a moment to end it and then hid some stuff and made it worse so that the war could keep going so you could
Right.
ride on the there's a lot of
I don't
shit
think I'm
stuff.
helping his case right now. I mean, and all this led to more student protests and, you know, the Kent State shootings, and, you know, he kept this enemies list. You know, you heard about this. You know, he had a list in his desk of all these people, and a lot of them were press people. And you know, although he didn't mastermind it, he helped cover up the burglary at the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel,
Yep.
which was a sleazy bit of thuggery.
Yes.
And, you know, pretty much that's what culminated in his disgrace and ultimately his resignation.
Yeah.
I don't know if I sold myself very well.
I mean, you've really sold him to me right now.
Okay.
So I love Nixon after that comment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just setting the stage. Like these are all like reasons why a lot of folks just think Richard Nixon, what a, you know, horrible guy.
Tricky dick.
He doesn't look very bad right now. Most left-wing thinking people despise Nixon, most younger people, and it's probably hard for them to get it into their heads that he was a hero in at least one important way. He was a champion of protecting the environment.
Okay.
Like no president before or since Theodore Roosevelt. So you know Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope there was an addendum to that. No
Yeah,
president
right.
before, as in like since Teddy. Because
I just said, because I could see it in your eyes.
I was like, oh yeah, he did all the conservation.
Explain.
Oh god, now I'm forgetting what the Tennessee Was it Tennessee?
Well, all the national
Yeah,
parks.
he did the whole National Park Administration. I forget what they were like. It was like the Tennessee Riders. We had some slogan name thing, but all the national park conservation, just conservation across the board. Teddy was so, even though he was like an avid hunter, which always kind of caught me as a dichotomy.
Well,
But
I mean,
yeah, the way it is. But yeah, Teddy Roosevelt started that whole kickoff trend of the U.S. cares about the environment sort of thing.
and I will say that Nixon's list of green accomplishments, and these are things that he actually initiated and laws he approved with his signature, it's impressive. Okay, now, deep breath. The National Environmental Protection Act of 1969, which, among other things, required that all federal agencies produce environmental impact statements on the possible negative impacts of any and all regulations. It also created the President's Council on Environmental Quality. Okay, the Environmental Protection Agency, 1970. The pretty much, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Without the EPA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration,
No.
which was proposed by Nixon. And this is directly from him: for better protection of life and property from natural hazards, for a better understanding of the total environment, and for exploration and development leading to the intelligent use of our marine resources. This is from Richard Nixon.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm just saying, like, this is the same guy that
Yeah.
all these people, like, hate. And
And he founded all these agencies that ring true today.
right. And that's not to say that other presidents would not have tried to do the same thing. But I would say that during this time period, the 60s and the 70s, we had such bipartisanship, like people were working together.
Yeah.
Did I say that the right way?
Yeah.
People from party lines, Republicans were voting with Democrats on legislation that made sense. LBJ was the same thing.
Yeah.
They would propose legislation that made sense and they would pass it. It's not the way that it is now where it's just gridlock
Yeah.
and nothing is
And they're
happening.
fighting to fight for the sake of fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no one is getting anything done. I'm sure that, Barack Obama or Clinton or even George W. Bush, GW, maybe would have tried to do some of these same things. I don't know about Reagan.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
His ideas weren't so great.
Reaganomics.
Or trickle down. That worked so well.
Right.
Sorry, all you Republicans listening.
Well, Nixon was a Republican. The Clean Air Act.
Yeah.
Before that act, I mean, if you look at China right now,
Oh yeah, smog city.
the air pollution problems that they have are really bad. And before the Clean Air Act, America was in the same boat.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, after this act, it's not like our skies are exactly pristine, but they're dramatically better. And later amendments of this law cleaned up the air even more. So then he created Earth Week in 1971, and he endorsed and commemorated the first anniversary of Earth Day. He may not have, been the person that started it up,
Yeah.
but
He was all about it. He threw his
was all
threw his
about
hat
it.
into the ring, so to speak.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
The Clean Water Act,
Okay.
1972. And if this is beginning to sound like the green legislation hall of fame,
Yeah. It's because it is.
it is. And I mean, this is Richard Nixon. This is
Yeah.
the guy that everyone was like, "Tricky Dick, he's a crook." Dude.
He's pushing good stuff. In some ways.
And these are no, but here's the thing:
Yeah.
the water that we have out there, like wastewater treatment plants, the way that they are now, that's because of things like this. See, folks don't understand kind of how municipalities work. When you create a law like this, the Clean Water Act, it's a federal regulation. What happens is it releases federal money to communities like Burlington or other cities where the federal regulators come in and say, hey, you have this waterway.
Yeah.
You're dumping raw sewage into it. You can't do that.
That's not cool. Stop doing that.
Right. And then the municipality comes back and says, well, we can't afford to fix it. And they go, hey, because of this law, we've created this federal regulation. Very rarely does the federal government prepare federal regulations and then not fund them. They
Yeah.
do with education. Let me tell you, that's a whole other topic.
Whole new show.
Let's not go there.
Let's get right back off that high horse.
A lot of federal
All right.
regulations in education that are non-funded,
Yeah.
but things like that. And as an engineer, whoop-de-doo, that's great.
Yeah.
And then you can apply for grants. And it's the same way with roads and streets and sidewalks,
Mm-hmm.
ADA, Title I funds. So these laws, it's not just tree-hugging hippie blah. Richard Nixon wasn't sporting a pair of Birkenstocks in his office going like, hey, somebody hand me the marijuana. He was actually signing something into law, from a bill to a law, and getting it passed through legislation. And then that frees up, okay, now we're actually going to do something about it. The same way Eisenhower was like, we need an interstate system. The Endangered Species Act,
Wow.
1973.
Okay.
And even if this was all Nixon had achieved, he would rank as one of our greenest presidents.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
And no one remembers that because he screwed up so majorly in so many other ways.
Now, okay. So now I put some other notes in here because I did other research about this.
Yeah.
And a lot of his opponents claim, naturally, of course, that all of these noble gestures were politically motivated. Because Nixon, at the time, he didn't. This is what his opponents would claim: is that he didn't really care about the environment.
Yeah.
But he knew that a lot of Americans did at this time
Try
period.
to win him over.
And he wanted to divert attention from the disaster that was Vietnam. And
It's like the whole circus, food and circus.
Right.
Bread and circus.
yeah, like
mentality.
How's that? What?
Well, that's like ancient Rome.
Explain.
History lesson 101, like Circus Maximus and all that. Like they gave out like free food and had like a Roman circus history of it. That all happened as a way for the government to give the people something to look at while the entire government collapsed behind them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was like an ancient
Pay
Roman
no
history
attention
thing.
to this man behind the
Literally,
curtain.
it was like, hey, all you people, go look at this free food and the
Sure.
circus thing, and then we're gonna just the political upheaval of this whole system. Just kidding. Don't pay attention to that. Look over here. So that's a tried and true strategy.
Okay.
Since like 400 AD.
This is what I would say. There's probably some grains of truth
Yeah.
to that. That he was, he was a political animal.
Yeah.
Nixon was a huge political animal, and I would highly recommend if you have no life and no time on your hands, go to
Yeah.
YouTube and track down some tapes of Nixon hanging out in his office, giving racial slurs and swearing and talking about his political enemies, and that'll turn you off to him
That'll
big time.
real quick.
But honestly, that him doing that's like that. It's like locker room talk kind of thing. Like not Trump.
Let's not excuse.
I'm not
locker
excusing
room.
it. I'm not
Yeah.
excusing it. I'm just saying that there's probably some grains of truth in it. But honestly, so what? Try to imagine a political leader right now
Yeah, it's doing the same deal.
in any party at all, advocating for these super bold pro-environmental.
Yeah, I guess
Legislature.
at what point is it like I don't know what the word I'm thinking of here. Is it acceptable in some ways to like you just kind of like turn your head, so to speak, and like, okay, well, he's definitely doing this for political gain, probably, but also what's he doing? And wow, like I don't really. At what point is it like I don't really care what the motivation behind it is? It's these acts are so historic and monumental that like it's okay. The fact that they just made their way out.
I am not saying that the man deserves a pass. I would
Yeah.
say that his conscience in the books is clear. He paid his debt. He resigned from office.
Yeah.
He will be besmirched forever. Like anyone that ever
Yeah.
thinks of Richard Nixon, they will think of that date,
that moment.
August 8th, 1974. But he did more for the environment than most of the bona fide environmentalists that I know.
Okay.
So it's pretty crazy, though.
Yeah, it is.
It is. So I had some other thoughts on this.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick break before we? come
Yeah,
back?
sure. Let's do
I'm
that.
feeling like I need to get a little educated after this. This
That's
segment.
crazy, though, right?
Yeah, right. No,
Hold
it's
on,
been-
which one do I want to play here?
You got a track ready?
I think so. Yeah.
Lay it on me.
Try that.
Hit me with some sick beats.
Yeah. There you go. Enjoy that. Kyle.
Oh, that was a hard cut.
Yes, it was. You can't blame me. This is for your information, Kyle.
I'm so ready.
Earth Day got its start in the wake of the Vietnam War. I already talked about this. Skip it. Though Earth Day may now be synonymous with small-scale tree planting and volunteer cleanup projects, the first Earth Day actually had its sights set on bigger political projects. Earth Day demonstrations created public
Nailed it.
support for the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, authorized by Congress in December of 1970. Earth Day also contributed to the passage of the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Endangered Species Acts. Kyle, for your information, Earth Day may have been conceived in 1970, but it didn't truly go global until 1990. That year, more than 200 million people participated in environmental activities in more than 141 countries. This year, more than 1 billion people are expected to participate. Well, they probably already did because it was April 22nd, which was like 2 weeks ago.
Nailed it.
Kyle, for your information, Gaylord Nelson originally chose April 22nd because it didn't seem to coincide with other big holidays and it was spring break. However, the date was once a big deal in the communist Soviet Union. It was also the birthday of Vladimir Lenin. Now, this information is a great way to celebrate the most famous mother of all, Mother Earth. And Kyle, this has been for your information, Kyle.
I feel like that was a rather detailed one. Each of those points were like paragraphs. Usually it's just, it's like a quick little like, oh, information, and screaming. And this was like very knowledgeable. I thought out. Different
It's
tones.
too much information.
You nailed it.
Oh,
Nailed
thanks,
it.
man.
We both nailed our segment.
Brother.
Anyway, welcome back to STEAM Lab, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. I'm your host, Dr. Kyle.
Oh,
And across
yes.
from me is Engineer Philip.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
See how I just flipped the script on
Yeah,
that?
that's totally fine with me. And you can interact with us on Facebook, facebook.com/SteamLabVT, and Twitter @SteamLabVT. And we are on YouTube Live right now, and the link, Kyle, is on facebook.com/SteamLabVT.
Do we have any, can we track live watchers on
I
YouTube?
just have no idea.
I don't know.
Probably could.
I don't know how to use it. I'm just
Yeah, let me
curious.
check it out. 7 people have been reached thus
Cool.
far.
7.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I'm seeing us right now. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Don't double loop us again.
No, I won't. I did.
I've got you muted.
I did that
God.
already, as a matter of fact.
Jeez.
Oh, Lord. So yes, you can go there. You can check us out. You can see our faces, which are beautiful. No, I can't tell how many people. One person is watching right now.
Nice. Thanks, Sheila.
Oh man.
Oh,
Oh
geez.
man.
No, it's
It
okay.
was so much. Facebook Live worked really well, but the rules
I
are
know,
changing
Facebook
and
is weird. It's fine.
whatever.
We'll get there again.
Yes. So we were talking about Nixon and his involvement with all these environmental issues. And, other things that I think are really fascinating here is his nominations of EPA administrators. So the first was a gentleman by the name of Russell Train, followed by the appointment of William D. Ruckelshaus.
What?
And they were commendable Nixon accomplishments. So perhaps no, and I'm reading this off of something I wrote down, perhaps no EPA administrator since those two stands with such honor as those two EPA appointees, because
Wow.
they took the ball and they ran with it.
That
They
was,
actually-
I mean, it's good for the first two to really be spearheading the mission there. It would suck if they didn't really believe in the whole program.
right.
Yeah.
So, and another thing that I kind of read as I was going through all this is that a lot of folks have this argument that it was, it wasn't Nixon, it was the congressional staffs and other members of Congress who wrote all these bills and, men
He's
like
just rubber stamping it.
Yeah, like Pete McCloskey, we talked about Gaylord Nelson, and Nixon simply signed the bills into law. But he signed them.
He still signed him. He didn't have to sign him.
And you heard some of his direct quotes. I mean, he was definitely involved. The fact remains is he was one of the greenest presidents we've ever had.
Yeah.
And he was a champion of protecting the environment. So, and the list goes on and on. So I do have another story.
Ooh.
Yes.
Part 2.
Yes, this is going to take a lot of energy to get into.
You got 20 minutes.
I do. But I think this one can bleed over into the next hour.
Let's hear it.
There's a girl by the name of Greta Thunberg.
I have no idea where this is going.
I wrote this down. It came from an article, and I will explain. And this comes from her Twitter page. Greta Thunberg is a 16-year-old climate activist with Asperger's
Interesting.
from Sweden.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Friday school walkout thing?
Yeah.
This is her.
Okay.
One girl's utter determination to try and stop the greatest threat humanity has ever faced has set off a global youth climate strike movement.
Huh.
She is the voice of a generation.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of research on her, and it is amazing. And
Now I'm intrigued.
oh yeah, and as you should be.
I'm ready to learn something.
Well, what I'm going to do here, while I'm thinking and typing, is I'm going to pull up. She gave a speech at a summit in the European Union, and okay, I pulled it up. Okay, are you ready?
Are you ready? You got it?
We're going to play her speech, and this is going to tell you everything you need to know. In the European Union. Oh, and that's me again. Are you ready?
Oh, stop. Okay.
Okay, you ready?
I want you to act as if the house was on fire. I have said those words before, and a lot of people has explained why that is a bad idea. A great number of politicians have told me that panic never leads to anything good. And I agree. To panic unless you have to is a terrible idea. But when your house is on fire and you want to keep your house from burning to the ground, then that does require some level of panic. We are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, and the extinction rate is up to 10,000 times faster than what is considered normal, with up to 200 species becoming extinct every single day. Erosion of fertile topsoil, deforestation of our great forests, toxic air pollution, loss of insects and wildlife, the acidification of our oceans. These are all disastrous trends being accelerated by a way of life that we, here in our financially fortunate part of the world, see as our right to simply carry on. Our house is falling apart, and our leaders need to start acting accordingly, because at the moment they are not. If our house was falling apart, our leaders wouldn't go on like you do today. You would change almost every part of your behavior, as you do in an emergency. If our house was falling apart, you wouldn't hold 3 emergency Brexit summits and no emergency summit regarding the breakdown of the climate and environmental. The EU elections are coming up soon, and many of us who will be affected the most by this crisis, people like me, are not allowed to vote. Nor are we in a position to shape the decisions of business, politics, engineering, media, education, or science. Because the time it takes for us to educate ourselves to do that simply does no longer exist. And that is why millions of children are taking it to the streets, school striking for the climate, to create attention for the climate crisis. You need to listen to us, we who cannot vote. You need to vote for us, for your children and grandchildren. What we are doing now can soon no longer be undone. In this election, you vote for the future living conditions for humankind. And though the politics needed do not exist today, Some alternatives are certainly less worse than others. And I have read that some parties do not even want me standing here today because they so desperately do not want to talk about climate breakdown. To do your best is no longer good enough. We must all do the seemingly possible. And it's okay if you refuse to listen to me. I am, after all, just a 16-year-old schoolgirl from Sweden. But you cannot ignore the scientists, or the science, or the millions of school-striking children who are school-striking for the right to a future. I beg you, please do not fail on this.
Yo.
Whoa. That's quite the speech.
There you go. So that's the best way to introduce her to you.
Yeah, man. That 16-year-old has more poise and the ability to, put together a powerful speech than I do at 24.
Well, this is one thing that I would say. She has Asperger's.
Yeah.
And so that will give you the ability to kind of block out certain social distractions and focus.
Focus all of your energy on that.
Well, I used to work with students that have autism, and kids that are autistic and have Asperger's. They make great engineers, and scientists. We've talked about that before. Any of these, everybody's got a crazy. I got one. You got one. I mean, we all have one. And so, how can you take that and turn it around into something powerful? So, Greta Thunberg. She was born in 2003.
Wow.
Her mother is a famous Swedish opera singer, Marlena Ernman, and her father is an actor, Svante Thunberg, and her grandfather is an actor and director. So she comes from a pretty famous family.
Yeah. Pretty up there.
Yeah. And so kind of like what happened with her is she decided when she was 15, back in August of last year, that every Friday she was just going to not go to school, and she was going to go to Swedish Parliament and just protest.
Wow.
And just
16-year-old.
Well, she was 15 at the time.
15. Jesus.
And there's a little bit of a story of that, and she became famous pretty quickly, and actually gave a TED talk in November of last year. And she says that she first heard about climate change at the age of 8, but could not understand why so little was being done about it. So an 8-year-old. And here's the thing, folks.
What a worldview. Where are they putting the water over in Sweden? Jeez.
I don't want to get out my soapbox. So this is not a soapbox. This is just, we're having this discussion about Earth Day. We're just kind of like, here's the facts and stuff. And here's stuff that's going on. I mean, science is not something to debate. I'll just say that. So it isn't. What's going on over there?
The phone's
ringing. Oh yeah, answer the phone. Go for it.
Someone's calling in. We can't put them on the.
No, you can't. But answer. Maybe it's somebody wants to talk about this. So she gave a TED talk. Yeah, at age 11, she became depressed and stopped talking. Oh, who is it?
Hi, you've called the WBTVOP studio.
They've stopped this show dead in its tracks. We must know who it is.
No, there's no one's talking.
Oh, well, then hang up, I guess.
Okay.
Goodbye. Wow, that was interesting.
There was no one on the line, folks.
Okay, back to Greta Thunberg. So at age 11, she became depressed and just literally stopped talking because of this environmental stuff. She's just hooked into the environment. Later on, she was diagnosed with this Asperger's syndrome and OCD and selective mutism. And I will tell you, as a teacher, I worked with a couple of students with this mutism thing.
Yeah.
She added that selective mutism meant she was speaking only when she needed to, and that now is one of those moments. And that being on the spectrum was an advantage, as almost everything is black or white to her. Thunberg has said, "I feel like I'm dying inside if I don't protest." Her father doesn't like her cutting class, but says, "We respect that she wants to make a stand. She can either sit at home and be really unhappy or protest, skip school, and at least be happy."
Yeah.
feel like she's making a difference. And to lower her family's carbon footprint, she insisted they become vegan and give up flying.
Wow.
And her family they're all vegans now.
Okay.
I imagine if my 8-year-old Amelia came home and said, "Look,
You got to be vegan now.
that's it. we need to lower our carbon footprint."
Yeah.
I mean, people are powerful, and when they make demands, sometimes right.
Yeah.
I mean, we went meatless Mondays.
Did you?
Yeah, we usually do mushroom stroganoff. Yeah, anyways. Okay, so I kind of want to take a step back.
Yeah.
Dominoes. What do you think of a domino? Dominoes are they're a pretty cool thing, right? One hits another, and then another, and so on. Cascading effects are an interesting thing. So I kind of made a connection. I wrote this all down. I was thinking about it when I was putting this together. Gandhi had no idea that he would influence Martin Luther King Jr. The civil rights movement leaders of the 1960s, like Martin Luther King, they had no idea that school shooting survivors from Florida in the United States would use their methods to power a modern, non-violent movement to end gun violence. Students around the world began standing up for their survival, and they used the same thing, the power of peaceful, intelligent, and persistent protest. And that is what Greta Thunberg is doing. And I'm telling you right now, this 16-year-old little girl,
She's going places.
in her political movement, she is taking this powerful stand, and she's saying, we are not going to school on Fridays. And it has become huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It's become a worldwide movement. Maybe we should take a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Before we wrap up and move into the second hour.
Right. I got more to this tale.
Yeah.
I have way more about this story. She has a personal manifesto.
Ooh.
She's writing books. I mean, this kid's going places.
Yeah.
Folks, keep an eye on Greta Thunberg. And we're gonna play some music, and then we're gonna talk about this.
Okay. You got some music?
Yeah. Let's play some music.
Ooh, jazzy.
Yeah, you like it?